Do you have an all-in, all-the-time attitude? Do you believe second place is first place for losers? One thing is for certain. The only easy day was yesterday. Welcome to Dare to Live Greatly. Sponsored by USMilitary.com. Your podcast for fearless warriors. Now, let's dive in and go one-on-one with today's fearless warrior. Direct from the USMilitary.com network. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, my name is Larry Fowler with USMilitary.com podcast, where we ask tough questions for tough people. Today, my guest host is Mark Carroll. Mark, great. Thank you for being here today.
Good to be here.
And in our hot seat is Guy Courtice, my swim buddy, Buds Class 89. Thank you for being here, Guy.
You're welcome, Larry.
All right. Well, tell us. Let's dive right in. Tell us about Buds.
BUDS is actually an acronym. It stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, and it's a 6-month course where you go through a very difficult time. Actually, and one of the most difficult aspects of the course is that you can quit anytime you want during those entire 6 months. Usually starts with about 150 candidates, and anywhere from 1 to 25, maybe 30 might make it through the training. Our class, the original 150 or so, I think the original, but we had maybe 16 or so original made it, and we had a few guys roll back from that had been injured in previous classes that joined our class, and so a total 24 guys graduated with class 89.
Buds Class 89. Is there anything special about Buds Class 89?
Buds Class 89, unbeknownst to us at the time, came up with a class slogan, and the class slogan became the official slogan of the Naval Special Warfare, what we call the teams. And the slogan is, "The only easy day was yesterday."
Wow. So what does that mean?
I don't know.
So tomorrow's not going to be easy, right?
It means, I guess it means that because it's over with, we can consider it easy, but don't look forward to anything at all being easy. There's nothing easy about being a SEAL, and don't expect anything in the future to be easy.
Yeah, every day is a unique day, right, in training. So you mentioned about quitting. Was there any point in time in Buds that you considered or thought about quitting, Guy?
You know, it's interesting because you do have, the instructors are constantly exhorting, encouraging, begging, pushing, commanding, and finding any way, shape, or form to get you to quit. It's kind of interesting because the program is designed to produce Navy SEALs, but so you wouldn't think that was the goal of the instructors, was to get people to quit. But actually, the instructors take it upon themselves to see if they can wash out as many people as they can. And if you have if there is any quit in you, they will find it. They make fun of you. They make fun of your height. They make fun of your build. They make fun of your race. They make fun of your anything at all, your abilities. And if they can find a way to get you to quit, they will try and do it.
Right.
For some reason, and I don't know why, I never ever considered quitting, and I considered dying. I knew that I wasn't going to make it. Honestly, I really knew that I never thought that I would make it through that training.
Right.
But I did not ever consider quitting.
Why? What inspired you to continue to thrive and to...
The truth of the matter is, this is going to sound really crazy, but I didn't have the self-confidence to quit. I don't know how I would ever go home and face friends and family or anybody ever again if I quit.
Let's go back to the injuries. Did you have any injuries through buds that you can share with us today?
I have some that I definitely cannot share with you. I injured my knees really badly during Hell Week. After Hell Week was over and I got about 20 hours of sleep, my body began to try to recover. That recovery meant that I started feeling pain again. The pain meant that I couldn't even barely walk, let alone run. After a couple of days, Proctor Twittick said, Courtice, I know you guys call me Courtice. I always mispronounce my name. I'm sorry. The instructor said, Courtice, he said, you're not going to walk through Bud's training. Get your ass over to medical. At the time, medical was across the street over in NAB, the Naval Amphibious Base. And I went over there. I saw a doctor. He gave me x-rays and said that he was going to drop me from the training. And I said, well, what's the matter? And he said, you have chondromalacia. And I said, well, what's that? He said, it's a form of arthritis. He said other things, but as I stood there, I started swaying and I may have almost passed out. And whatever else he said, I don't know because I couldn't hear because the world was going gray. But he was writing into handwriting 2 pages of something or other. It was 1975. Things weren't typed into a computer then. So he wrote this 2-page paper dropping me from buds. I said, well, is there anything I can do for it? He said, no. Anything you do over there is just going to make it worse. I said, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I didn't think I was going to make it through that training anyway. And I acted very nonchalant. And so he wasn't worried, I guess, and he put the 2 pages into a file folder, handed it to me, and said, take this up to the front desk and turn it in on your way out. I said, okay. So on the way out, I stopped by a head, which is what we call a bathroom in the Navy. I stopped by the bathroom, and I don't know. I guess I lost those pages from that file folder. Yeah, I don't know. I
don't know what happened.
Might have been a dearth of toilet paper at the time. I don't know. So anyway, I went back over to Bud's, and the Twittick, and our Proctor Twittick said to me, "What'd the doctor say?" Start running. So I started running again.
Wow, that's an inspirational story.
But I did so with a complete and utter conviction that it meant that I was probably going to end up in a wheelchair by the time I was 25. I was 20 at the time, so.
Wow.
So so what I'm telling people when they ask me what's it take to get through buds is I'm telling them you have to have a completely warped sense of priorities.
Right.
You have to really, I mean, my priority should have been my health.
Right.
But it was wrong. My priority was wrong. It was readjusted during that period of time, during those 6 months. My priority was, number one, get through training. Nothing else mattered.
Right. Wow, that's great. That's kind of in line with cheating. I think someone once said, when the instructor said, if you don't cheat, you're not trying. And if you get caught cheating, you're not trying hard enough.
Yes, if you cheat and you get caught, you're not trying hard enough. Yeah, and I've been surprised to find out how many people really were trying because I didn't realize how much cheating was going on. I was too scared to cheat too much.
I did not cheat either. So, yeah. But wow.
And the cheating I did, I won't admit to.
Good move. I think you're safe now. So what would you say the greatest life lesson 45 years later as a result of persevering through buds? And of course, you've already mentioned about the confidence factor.
You know, later on in life, that actually has been a really great life lesson. I mean, as I went through college or as I dealt with difficult bosses or difficult situations in life, it's kind of like, and this too shall pass. Whatever situation I'm in, it's going to pass, and something different's going to come along. It may not be necessarily better, but it's different. And when it's different, you can deal with it.
Yeah. You know, life is tough. So if there were a mass grouping of young people out there listening to this podcast today, what would you like to say to them, or what would you say to them?
I'd probably say that you have no idea what you're capable of. You have no idea whatsoever what you're truly capable of. The amazing thing that SEAL training did for us is that every day it took us to our limit, and this was for 6 months. Every day it took us to our limit, and then it took us just a little bit beyond it. So the next day we had a new limit. So then the next day it took us to our new limit, and then it took us a little bit beyond it. And it did that to us for 6 months. By the end of 6 months, after 180 days of every day being taken to your limit and then being taken beyond it, by the end of 6 months, I truly believe that I didn't have a limit. My limitations, I mean, maybe I could never play in the NBA, but I truly recognized the fact that I did not have any concept of where my limits were. Because if I were to just challenge my limits a little bit more every single day, that I might be capable of something far, far beyond anything I ever hoped and dreamed.
Wow.
And in honesty, I feel like where I am today is so far beyond anything that I could ever imagine.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I thought you were going to give credit to your swim buddy, but I'm just going to read a portion of his resume: welder, roofer, police officer, teaching assistant, Navy SEAL. Of course, we know that. Courier, SOPS specialist, air conditioning tech, recreational attendant, lawyer. I mean, we could go on and on. Is there anything you haven't done? What's left on your bucket list?
I was kind of hoping I'd make money somewhere.
Well, tell me, what do you think? Describe to me. I just read something where you talked about leadership, and it really, struck chords with me. We're talking about leadership, qualities of leadership. What does leadership look like? And can you share with us what leadership looks like for you?
Too often leadership has been about, for the leader himself, that I've seen is that it's all about the individual who's in leadership position looking at personal advancement, at his own personal or her own personal advancement.
Right.
And the kind of leadership that I would love to see would be the leader that actually cares about the people that they're leading. The leader that says, my job as a leader is to see the development of those who I'm leading, to see them become better at what they're doing.
It's so interesting. I did a study on qualities of leadership and looking at worldly publications and books. Came up with, I believe, 28 or 30 leadership qualities. And the number one quality, and I did a accounting, the number one quality, do you know what it was?
Yeah, height. You got to be tall and a deep voice.
Yes. Among that, the number one was actually what you're referring to is loving, caring for others.
Really?
And that's the anchor of, this is the world. So it has nothing to do with faith, but it is the world, what the world says. World publications. They need someone that they trust and someone that invests in them, meaning less me, more others. So I just mentioned faith. So just tying into that, did the faith ever tie in to be an inspiration for you through Buds?
Yeah, it actually did. I had recently become a Christian. Actually, I went to training in 1976. I started training in May of 1976, and I'd become a Christian in January of 1976.
So you went through Buds.
I was a brand new Christian.
You're a brand new Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a little bit overzealous and very ignorant about what I believed, but very zealous about my ignorance. And but I truly, I mean, I didn't know much, but I was zealous about what I did know. And so I prayed a lot, like whenever I got when I was fatigued on runs, and when I was In fact, there's a funny event that happened to me one time. There was this one lieutenant. He was in charge of one of the phases. He's deceased now, but this guy, for some reason, for some reason did not seem to like me. I'm not sure if he liked anybody, but one day,
It's like the instructor's job is not to like anybody.
yeah, but this guy was particularly onerous. But anyway, during one time I think it was on a day off, and we were in some kind of a rec room. There were a few of us in there,
Right.
and he wanders in. Why are you always smiling? I said, well, sir, I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. And he said, well, I hate Jesus, and I hate people who smile all the time. I said, well, I'm sorry for you, sir. And you know what? I think he meant it.
Wow.
Yeah, I was,
Very good.
I was pretty zealous at the time. I probably might have.
Right. Wow. That's great. Well, Guy, let me ask you, what questions am I not asking that you would like to share with us? And by the way, thank you so very much for being here. It's such an honor to have you here. By the way, for you guys, Guy was my swim buddy. And here we are 45 years later. We're still friends and still call on each other. We still support each other. And it's, and by the way, swim buddy is someone that you, how would you term it?
Okay, so swim buddies in during buds, what they do is they actually group two guys together. They pair us up according to our swimming ability. Like the two fastest swimmers would be a swim pair, and then so on and so on until they get to the two worst swimmers, and those two would be a swim pair, and those two guys are called swim buddies. And during a swim, those swim buddies cannot be more than 6 feet apart from each other. If they are more than 6 feet apart from each other, then they get punished very severely. I mean, very, very severely. So Larry and I had similar swim capabilities.
Skills. I like them skills, by the way.
I wouldn't call it our swimming ability ever came up to the level of a skill. Larry was the second worst swimmer at buds during our time.
If that could be ever, by the way.
Yeah, it could be. Larry and I were swim buddies because we were probably the two worst swimmers to ever make it through buds.
Yes, yes. And we were normally in last place, except for one specific swim. Can you share with us about that?
Okay, so normally we would swim off the coast of San Diego, and these are familiar waters. We'd swim along the shore of San Diego. We'd kind of focus on the Hotel del Coronado. We'd swim either 1.1 mile swim or 2.2 mile swim, and we'd guide along the coast, and we could know how we're doing and stuff. But this would be during the daytime. So one day, we were going to have our very first nighttime swim, and that was going to be out at San Clemente Island, which is, 30 miles out to sea. So we flew out to San Clemente Island for our first night swim. Well, before our night swim, the instructors took us into a classroom, and they took us out at about dusk. And for about 2 or 3 hours, we watched film strips and slides and videos or whatever they could find. And they showed us every possible seaborne denizen that could cause any kind of damage to the human body. And they showed victims of these predators. They showed bodies of people that had this much of their body bit off by sharks. They showed victims of Portuguese man-o-war, jellyfish that had been all entangled in 300 feet of tendrils or whatever. The last thing they showed us was from the movie Jaws, which had actually come out, I think, in 1974 or 1975, which was still fresh on our minds anyway. They showed, the very last thing they showed us was this clip of the movie where this gal had, I guess, gotten nude and gone out into the water and gotten dragged under by a shark and eaten.
Wow. She needed a swim buddy.
Yeah, she needed a swim buddy. Yeah, actually, that's the definition of a swim buddy. A swim buddy is the guy that in the event that a shark is coming at you, that you immediately pull out your K-bar and give him a quick cut on the arm so that he's bleeding while you swim away. So we saw this for like 2-3 hours, and until it got absolutely pitch black dark. Then we go out to the water. This is on an island. It's an island way out to sea where it's actually very, very dark. And I think they did it on a moonless night, so the only ambient light would have been starlight, which wasn't very bright. So we're out there, and half a mile out in the water was an instructor on a raft with a light. Our job was to swim out to the instructor on the raft, swim around the raft, call out our swim pair number, and then swim back to the shore. And we'd never been out there before. This is totally unfamiliar water. So it's like, okay, whatever, So we start getting out into the water, and we start swimming. Suddenly, all of us, the entire class, we're all being attacked by something in the water. And we are like, everybody's like yelling, oh, what's going on? It's like, there's all kinds. And of course, all these images in our head of all these things. And we're being attacked by something in the water. Well, it turned out, obviously, we'd never swum in all this seaweed before. And that's what was attacking us, was all the seaweed. Well, Larry and I always came in last place, and it wasn't even close. We always came in last place. But it turned out that swimming in seaweed actually was very, very beneficial for us, because we didn't actually have to swim. We just kind of like crawled on top of the seaweed. So we actually, for the first time and only time, we came in 4th place out of the 10 or 12 swim pairs. Right. And so we came in 4th place. So we come in and we're like, yeah, baby, we came in 4th place.
No easy day, right?
No, the only easy day was yesterday.
Yes. Well, we're almost finished, but there's something I learned today. I had no idea, and you're my swim buddy. And by the way, the definition of a swim buddy is someone who shares their urine and allows you to climb up in their butt during Hell Week. Fact or fiction?
Climb up in their butt, it needs to be explained a little bit more carefully than that. That just means that it's so cold and you're all wet and you haven't slept in a few days and there's no warmth whatsoever. It's freezing cold. It just means you snuggle a little bit. It's nothing. There's no sexual thing going on there.
All right, but you did hold on a little longer than you should have. So tell me, colorblind. So wait a second. You cannot be colorblind and go into SEALs.
No, you can't.
Are you colorblind?
I am colorblind.
Explain that.
Well, I think it means I lack a few cones in my eyes.
How did you get into SEAL training? How did you get the buds?
You have to go take a physical test, which isn't terribly hard unless you can't swim.
Right.
So you take a swim test, pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and a run in boots. And then if you pass that, then you have to go take a physical inspection kind of test, where they inspect you. Well, I said, where can I go get the physical done? And they said, go over to the Kitty Hawk, which was also up there. And I went and saw somebody, a corpsman, which is kind of like a paramedic in the Navy. And it happened to be at lunchtime, so nobody else was around. He gave me the physical, and he said, but when it came to the color vision part of it, he said, are you colorblind? I said, no. But like I said, I had just become a Christian. And so I said, well, sometimes I pass the test and sometimes I fail.
Wow.
And he said,
great response.
Well, because I had passed it one time.
Right. Got it.
Most of the time I failed. So he said, okay, well, what color is my shirt? And he was wearing a blue shirt. I said, blue. What color is the table? Brown. What color is the bulkhead? In Navy terms, that means wall. What color is the bulkhead? Gray. It was a ship. They're all gray. I said, so he said, oh, you passed, and he marked it passed. And so I never got checked again before I started BUD/S, and that was, so I managed to get through.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a funny world.
Guy Courtice, thank you so very much.
Thanks, somebody.
And thanks for sharing.
Thanks, somebody. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, brother.
All right, that's it. Hey, thank you so very much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You just listened to the USMilitary.com network podcast, Dare to Live Greatly, where we go one-on-one with proven, documented, fearless warriors. Thank you for being a team member today. Remember, live a life bigger than self, always. See you next week.